For the last couple of decades, we've used this one specific word to describe our digital lives, and it's a word that sounds completely weightless.
Right. The cloud.
Exactly, the cloud. We talk about saving our photos to the cloud or, running our businesses in the cloud. It sounds so fluffy, invisible, like it just floats above us, requiring absolute nothing from the physical earth.
Which is a very effective illusion,
Yeah, it
honestly.
is. But then you actually look at the data driving our world right now, and suddenly you realize that this invisible cloud you're interacting with on your phone at this very second, well, it actually weighs millions of tons.
Like, absolutely.
It is made of concrete, it is made of steel, and it is hungry. I mean, it is consuming massive industrial amounts of physical resources. So welcome to the deep dive. It is Monday, July 6th, 2026. And if you're listening to this in America, you are probably shaking off the Independence Day weekend hangover, grabbing that first cup of coffee, and heading back to work.
Which, let's be honest, is often a really harsh transition.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah, going from the very visceral experience of fireworks and barbecues right back into earnings expectations and the economic calendar. Post-holiday market reopenings usually serve as this massive reset for national and global priorities. The speculation sort of stops, and the markets get back to demanding hard numbers.
And to figure out exactly what those hard numbers are, we've got a really fascinating stack of sources for you today. We are pulling from a comprehensive snapshot of the daily Tech Reader's 6 a.m. news brief. It's this great cross-section of where we are right now, covering everything from global markets and AI infrastructure to healthcare and pop culture, plus a look at some of their most popular recent archived stories.
Yeah, it provides a really solid data set
Yeah.
because it covers both the macro shifts in global policy and the micro shifts in, daily consumer habits.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to look past those individual headlines to uncover the massive hidden current driving the mid-2026 world. We're going to figure out how the digital revolution has suddenly become an intensely physical and infrastructural one, and more importantly, what that actually means for your career, your investments, and your daily life.
It's a big topic.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start where the business world is starting this Monday morning, which is the tech and finance sectors. Reading through these sources, the overriding vibe is that the quote-unquote experimental phase of AI is just dead.
Yeah, completely.
The Daily Tech Reader notes that 2026 is the year of operational excellence. Enterprise AI has transitioned from this emerging tech curiosity into standard infrastructure.
Well, I wouldn't call it a sudden death of the experimental phase, but rather a forced maturation.
Okay, how do you mean?
The markets are actively rewarding profitable AI businesses now while heavily penalizing those that are still, coasting on potential.
Mm.
The emphasis is entirely on measurable business value.
I'm looking at these stats on measurable productivity, though, and I have to ask, is this just polite corporate spin for mass layoffs?
That's the fear, right?
Because if I'm a listener and I hear my company is evaluating AI based on measurable business outcomes, I'm worried this means human jobs are gone. Like, is it just the fancy gym membership that we bought during the hype cycle, and now we're being forced to do the heavy squats by cutting payroll?
That is a really common assumption, but actually it's more complex than just cutting headcount. What we're seeing is a fundamental evolution in how systems are built. Think of it like the early days of electrification.
Okay.
In 2023, AI was like a novelty static electricity parlor trick, People
Yeah.
were amazed it could write a funny poem.
Right, everyone was doing that.
Exactly. But in 2026, it's like we're trying to wire the entire house, and we're suddenly realizing our circuit breakers are catching fire. Take software development, for example. The sources note that developers are increasingly relying on AI coding assistance.
Which means the AI is actually writing the code that runs, like the supply chain software or the banking app.
Yes, and that is a massive shift in mechanism. You aren't just paying for a chatbot anymore. You are integrating an autonomous agent into a live production environment.
Oh, wow.
Right. If an AI writes a bad poem, nobody cares. But if an AI hallucinates a line of code in a logistics platform, a whole fleet of delivery trucks goes to the wrong state. So reliability is now the only metric that matters.
Which brings us to a really huge reality check. Let's look at one of the archive details from our sources, specifically from June 1st. Florida became the first state to officially sue OpenAI over ChatGPT safety failures.
Yeah, that was a watershed moment.
And just to be clear to you listening, we're just looking at the facts reported here. We're not taking a stance on the lawsuit itself, nor are we endorsing either side politically. But the fact that a state government is taking a major AI company to court, I mean, that feels like a completely new era of accountability.
What's fascinating here is the legal distinction between a beta test and critical infrastructure.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, for the last few years, AI companies operated under this sort of, move fast and break things software paradigm. But when a technology becomes deeply embedded into everyday business operations and public infrastructure, consumer protection laws apply differently.
Right, you can't just say, whoops, it's a beta.
Exactly. Strict liability starts to creep into the conversation. Lawsuits like the one in Florida aren't stopping AI. They are the growing pains of a technology being forced to carry its own weight in the real world.
But that leads us directly to the causal question. Where does the energy for all that heavy lifting actually come from? Because if segment 1 is about the software maturing, segment 2 has to be about the physical hardware required to run it. And here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does.
Remember our hook about the invisible cloud weighing millions of tons? The sources highlight that data center construction is currently one of technology's largest growth sectors, and AI data centers are driving massive long-term electricity demand.
I take it a step further, actually. It's not just a large growth sector.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally rewriting utility planning across the whole country.
Really, just from AI queries.
Yes. An AI query doesn't just pull a piece of text from a server like a traditional web search.
Yeah.
It actively computes and generates information on the spot. That requires specialized graphics processing units, or GPUs.
And those run incredibly hot, right?
So they run at blistering temperatures. So now you have a data center filled with tens of thousands of these chips. You need massive amounts of electricity just to run the calculations, and then you need an almost equal amount of energy to pump the liquid cooling systems to keep the building from literally melting down.
Which completely explains the irony we are seeing in the infrastructure reports. I mean, for years, we thought going digital meant we were moving away from the physical world, but the ethereal cloud actually requires unprecedented amounts of physical materials: concrete, copper, steel, and just raw power. Just imagine typing your next AI query on your phone and realizing it is literally being powered by a local nuclear reactor. Because according to the brief, utilities are scrambling to prepare for this demand. They're pushing grid modernization and placing a renewed focus on nuclear energy and battery storage.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you realize that long-term energy strategy is now entirely dictated by digital economic growth.
Yeah.
Utilities can no longer plan based on population growth alone. They have to plan based on computing density.
Wow. And the sources mention semiconductor manufacturing as well, noting it remains a national investment priority and that demand is exceeding long-term expectations. So it's not just the power grid, it's the physical microchips doing the thinking.
It goes deeper than just having the chips, too. The manufacturing process for an advanced semiconductor requires supply chains spanning dozens of countries. You're utilizing highly specialized rare earth metals and incredibly complex fabrication plants.
It's so interconnected.
Very. If you don't control the physical materials, you don't control your digital destiny. The business world is demanding operational excellence, but you literally cannot execute software if you do not have the physical silicon and the electricity to run it.
But you can't just plug a new nuclear reactor into the grid and build a massive semiconductor plant without securing those raw materials and shipping lanes first. And that physical dependency is exactly what transitions us into the global news.
It's all tied together.
It is. This massive demand for infrastructure is directly fueling the geopolitical tensions and the global checkerboard we're seeing today.
I think the word checkerboard is really appropriate there because every move on one side of the globe forces a counter move on the other.
It's like a massive game of civilization. When you read through the global updates, it is intense. We have NATO heavily focused on European security with the ongoing Ukraine and Russia military operations. We have major developments in the Middle East heavily influencing global energy markets.
Right.
And the causal link is undeniable. If conflict in the Middle East spikes the price of liquefied natural gas, the cost to cool a data center in Virginia skyrockets.
Which is why the archive story from May 31st is so critical. The U.S.-Iran peace talks reaching a tentative agreement on the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, and just to clarify for the listener, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical bottlenecks for global shipping and energy in the world.
A massive percentage of the world's oil and natural gas passes through that single narrow waterway. Now, we are impartial observers to the politics of the treaty itself, But from a purely economic standpoint, governments are delicately balancing national security priorities with the desperate need to keep international energy shipping stable.
Because of the AI infrastructure.
Exactly, the AI competition we discussed earlier. The sources explicitly state that it is increasingly shaping national economic strategies. You cannot win an AI arms race if your energy supply chain is choked off at a physical strait.
And the juxtaposition in the sources is just wild. You have that high-level international peace treaty happening on May 31st to secure global trade, and then just 2 days later, on June 2nd, federal authorities uncover a 2,000-foot underground drug tunnel connecting Mexico to the U.S.
The contrast is stark.
It's a stark reminder that while we are building this high-tech digital utopia, we are still dealing with incredibly gritty physical border vulnerabilities. Nations are simultaneously managing these high-minded digital ambitions and very literal, dirty underground realities at the exact same time. Again, completely impartial on the politics there, but the reality is striking.
And while those earthly physical tensions are playing out, governments are also looking upward.
The space race. Yeah, NASA is continuing Artemis preparations, commercial space launches are healthy, and Mars exploration planning continues. I almost have to ask, are we prioritizing the space race over earthly infrastructure?
It seems like it sometimes.
Right. But what really caught my eye in the science section were the advancements in fusion energy and climate monitoring satellites. The brief mentions satellites actively tracking the severe European heat wave that's currently affecting agriculture.
These scientific endeavors aren't just isolated experiments, though. They're direct attempts to solve the constraints we just talked about.
How do you mean?
Let's take fusion energy. Just to define it simply, fusion is the process of smashing atoms together to release energy. It's basically how the sun generates power. Unlike current nuclear fission, which splits atoms and creates radioactive waste, fusion could theoretically provide limitless clean energy.
Meaning if we can actually get fusion working on a commercial scale, the entire data center power problem completely disappears?
Precisely the goal. And the climate satellites serve a similar function for the physical supply chain. By utilizing AI to analyze the data from those satellites, governments can predict drought patterns during a heat wave and proactively secure agricultural supply chains before a food shortage hits.
So they're using the AI to protect the physical world.
Yes, they are trying to engineer their way out of the physical limits of the planet.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Let's bring this macro-level global checkerboard directly down to your daily life. How does this mid-2026 reality affect your body, your entertainment, and your Monday morning job?
The micro level.
Exactly. Because reading the health and medicine section of this brief, it sounds like we are living in a sci-fi novel. AI-assisted diagnostics are seeing broader adoption, and precision medicine is going strong.
And just so we're clear on the terms here, precision medicine means moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare.
Right.
Instead of giving you a generic blood pressure medication and hoping it works, doctors use your specific genetic markers to tailor a treatment exactly for your biology.
And the AI makes that possible because it can process those massive genetic data sets instantly.
Precisely.
The brief also highlights remote patient monitoring and healthcare cybersecurity priorities. It just feels like every aspect of our physical bodies is now integrated into this data web.
Which is why cybersecurity in healthcare is suddenly a top priority. When your pacemaker or your remote insulin monitor is connected to a cloud network, a data breach isn't just a privacy issue. It's a direct threat to a patient's physical safety.
That is terrifying. And it frames a massive question about the human element. I mean, with AI discovering our drugs, writing our code, and reshaping creative content, what is the role of the everyday human worker right now? Are we losing the human touch or just, augmenting it?
This raises an important question about how we, as a society, adapt to rapid technological maturity. But the sources provide a very grounding line in the culture section. Innovation and tradition continue existing side by side.
That stuck out to me too, because yes, we might be using AI to sequence DNA for precision medicine, but what are humans actually doing this week? While the Northeast has seasonable travel weather, the Southwest is dealing with desert heat, the central U.S. has afternoon thunderstorms.
Very normal things.
Right. And through it all, Americans are settling back into the rhythm of summer. We're kicking back to watch the World Cup, which remains the world's biggest sporting event. We're going to the summer movies.
And live entertainment attendance remains healthy. Independent creators and podcasts are still expanding their reach. The fundamental human desire for storytelling, for sports, for communal physical experiences, none of that has been replaced by the technology.
But when it comes to the workplace, the dynamic is a bit more demanding. The brief highlights that AI skills are increasingly valuable, skills-based hiring is expanding, and hybrid work patterns seem to have stabilized. But the overarching takeaway for the workforce is that continuous learning is your competitive advantage.
It's essential now.
I want to push on that, though. What does continuous learning actually mean in mid-2026? Is the brief telling everyone to go back to school to learn prompt engineering?
Actually, it's pivoting away from things like basic prompt engineering because the AI models are becoming smart enough to understand natural language without special tricks.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Continuous learning now means developing systems thinking and adaptability. It means learning how to manage AI agents the way a senior manager oversees a team of junior employees. You have to know how to delegate tasks to the software, verify its work for hallucinations, and integrate its output into your company's physical operations.
So you don't necessarily have to be a programmer, but you have to be an incredibly sharp editor and manager of the technology.
Yes, exactly. The tools update constantly, so relying on the workflow you learned even 2 years ago makes you obsolete. Execution and adaptability are what define successful careers right now.
It really is a picture of extremes. We are at this incredible intersection where the technology is the most advanced it has ever been, requiring the most massive physical infrastructure we've ever built, just so we can seamlessly stream a summer movie, receive personalized medicine, or do our jobs on a Monday morning.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. So let's do a quick recap of the journey we've taken today. We started with the return to work reality. The AI hype cycle is over. Businesses are demanding real, measurable ROI, which is pushing the technology into critical infrastructure and bringing legal reality checks along with it.
And to run that infrastructure, we explored the physical toll of the digital boom. The invisible cloud is driving a massive surge in data center construction, scrambling our utilities, and forcing a renaissance in nuclear power just to keep the grid alive and the microchips cool.
Which perfectly explains the global checkerboard. Nations are juggling international trade, peace talks in the Strait of Hormuz to secure energy, gritty border security, and a literal space race with fusion energy, all to secure the raw physical materials required to win the digital future.
It all comes back to the physical world.
It does. And finally, we brought it right back down to you. The world is changing rapidly. Adaptability is your best defense at work, but the human experience of the World Cup and summer weather remains wonderfully intact.
The technology augments the physical world, but it hasn't replaced the need for human connection.
But I want to leave you with a final concept to chew on as you go about your week. We've talked about how this entire modern world, from precision medicine and space exploration to streaming movies and financial markets, is now completely dependent on an incredibly complex, interconnected web of AI and the physical energy grids that power it.
Right.
It's a hyper-optimized system. But what happens to our society if just one major link in that chain experiences a prolonged failure?
It's a sobering thought. When everything is so tightly coupled, a single physical failure like a severed underwater cable or a stressed power grid has massive digital consequences.
And vice versa.
Exactly. A digital failure has immediate physical consequences on supply chains and hospitals.
It's a call to think about your own personal resilience in a hyper-connected world. Are you prepared for the physical weight of our digital lives? Keep learning, stay adaptable, and remember, the cloud might look weightless, but somebody, somewhere, is always burning fuel to keep it afloat. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today. We'll catch you next time.